So hello, today in this video I'm going to be talking about flow states and my own personal reflection of what flow means and how I might be able to use that in my classroom. I'd like to start by talking a little bit about where I heard about flow and how I learned about flow, because it was actually something that I knew about before this course. Just this last fall, so at the beginning of last school year, I did a professional development in the subject of positive education. In fact, we had some people come in for the PD from New Zealand from the Institute of Positive Education at the Geelong Grammar School. And there's a whole section about flow. And I also thought it was very interesting because within just about a week of doing this professional development, I also supported a mother. So I'm a doula and I supported her. And she is working on her postdoc in philosophy. And the philosophical idea that she was studying was flow. And I didn't know about this until I was supporting her during the birth. And we were walking around and I said, well, tell me a little bit more about what you do. And she was explaining to me what flow state was. And as she was doing this, I was thinking about it, of course, in the context of birth, and I thought they're free to give birth in an undisturbed manner, then they also enter into something very similar to a flow state, if not an actual flow state. So that's actually where I think probably my mind went with this reflection of flow states. I was thinking of flow being like in the zone, or birth workers often say the mother goes off to labor land kind of process. If there's anyone watching this video who has given birth, maybe you can relate to that. What I found interesting also in reflecting in that context is that flow and birth require a safe space. It's something that I, as a doula, strive to achieve, is that that mother is in a space where she feels safe enough to go into a flow state. And that's so important because, as many of the descriptions of flow states will tell you, you kind of lose awareness of your surroundings. You lose awareness of the space around you and you lose awareness of the time around you. And in order to do that, in order to let go in that moment, to enter into a flow state, you need to have a feeling of being safe. Thinking about that context made me think about how to create a safe space for students in my classroom, and something that I very much strive to do when I teach, and that is to create a risk-taking environment. So I was also reflecting quite a lot on how taking risks and being resilient have to do with flow states as well. So I'll get more into that as I get into my reflection. States of flow that I have personally experienced would be reading, and then also as I got older, research. When I really am interested in a topic, I can just get engulfed in it, go online and go from one link to the other and follow these paths, and then all of a sudden I realize that hours have gone by. So that's for me the key indicator that I've experienced flow, is that time just flies by. I also think I've experienced flow while driving. I'm not entirely sure that's all that safe. I drive and I notice that I am concentrating. I'm focused on driving, but particularly if there's music in the background, I just kind of forget about time and how long it is that I've been driving. I also experience flow while doing yoga and meditation. And I also thought about the fact that while cleaning, oddly enough, I quite often enter a flow state. In fact, I even have a way that I have learned that I can trigger myself to get into a cleaning mode. I have a specific CD that I even listened to as a child. My mother listened to it while she cleaned. I start listening to it when I clean. So when I know I need to clean the house, even if I don't really want to, I put on this CD, I start listening to the music, I sing along with the songs, and I clean, and all of a sudden I realize that the CD is over and I have to start it again. It's interesting to think about the fact that in the same sense of the psychology of Pavlov's dog, where we use some sort of stimuli to enter into a particular state, that stimuli can be used to trigger a flow state. I don't know how easy that would be to implement in the classroom setting, but it would be an interesting idea to explore. Something that I thought was very interesting about flow was the relationship of the skill to challenge. So when I was learning about it last September, we had this graph, which you can find everywhere because it's from the guy who is responsible for this flow concept, whose name I'm not going to even try to pronounce. I will learn it at some point. This chart is like this, and what it basically says is that the skill level should meet the challenge level. And if the skill level is high and the challenge level is high, that's when you enter into this flow state here. What I find interesting or somewhat critical about this, if you have a low skill level and a low challenge, I'm thinking of things that maybe have to do with like meditation. It doesn't seem to me like that would necessarily be a moment where I am apathetic, as this is suggesting. Like I said before, I'm really interested in how flow relates to resilience. So I was thinking about the fact that when we're in a state of flow, if there are any mistakes made, it doesn't even seem like they're registered as mistakes. You're just in that present moment so much that you just go, okay, well, let's do it again. And this is when I remembered that another flow state I enjoy being in is while knitting. And I'll be knitting and then I'll realize that I did something wrong. Maybe it was even a few stitches ago, which means that I have to take my work back. And when I'm talking to people about knitting and why it is that I like knitting, I say, when you're knitting, you can actually turn back time. So if you notice that in the past you've made a mistake and you are patient enough with yourself to do it, you can actually unravel the stitches that you've done to go back to that mistake, redo it, and start over again. That's something that, of course, we don't have in life. So being able to, in that context, go back in time makes me feel better about what I'm doing. And it also helps me to develop a certain type of resilience to it. Now we get behind the concepts of how to facilitate flow and how to support students in achieving a flow state in the classroom. I really enjoyed reading the discussions that we had in the forum on Teach Now. What Joyce said, for example, the considerations of space and time, that just breaks it down so well. In order to get a student into flow, they have to be fully engaged. And as soon as I heard that word engagement, I was able to relate it to my previous work in marketing. The idea with experiential marketing was to consider all 5 of the senses and make sure that you were incorporating at least 2 and at best 3 or more. The other thing I thought was really interesting that I remembered from experiential marketing and giving tours and performing is that flow states are to a certain extent contagious. So in experiential marketing, they talk about the fact that enthusiasm is contagious. So if you have a true deep-rooted passion for something and you are explaining that passion to somebody, they will also become interested in it. When I considered this, I then realized that, for example, if we go to a concert or to a theatrical performance, the people who actually are creating the flow are the ones on stage, but even the audience watching this enters into a flow state. So I go to a concert and the concert can last like 3 hours, or particularly going to the opera, people always go, oh my gosh, I can't imagine sitting in this opera hall for 4 hours. When you really enjoy it and you experience that, even just the observation of it can make those 4 hours just fly by. And so I thought, oh, I wonder in what way through observation students go into a flow state. I realized the importance of modeling a flow state as well as making sure that the students appreciate the flow state of each other, bringing the awareness of the students to their classmates while those classmates are in flow is something that I could see myself doing as a teacher. That also brings me to the idea that, of course, flow needs to be differentiated. Flow isn't going to be the same for every person. I need to make sure that when I am hoping to get my students into flow, that I don't push them into a particular direction, but give them multiple options in order to achieve their flow states. And that's all I've got to say about flow for this reflection. I could have made it a lot longer. I felt like I was in the flow up until this point. So thank you very much for listening. Bye.